Diane, my wife, is a slender natural blonde with blue eyes, freckles, and fair skin. She had cheated on me once before we got married. We used to date in college. I'd forgiven her since the start of the year. I saw certain attitude shifts that mirrored Diane's attitude when cheating in college. Then our intimacy decreased. I began to have severe misgivings about my wife's faithfulness. A simple first step would be to track her location. I turned it on. Find Your Phone app on my wife's device. 2 days later, I was sitting in my office at work when I realized my wife's phone was at home. As a real estate agent, she visited many places, but not our home on a Wednesday afternoon. I informed my supervisor that I needed to take a lengthy lunch and drove home. When I arrived at our house, the only automobile in the driveway was my wife's. Maybe she's just grabbing something from home. I believed I entered the house and realized she was unfaithful. I could hear conversations in the upper bedroom. I stepped just outside the bedroom door and pushed my phone past the edge of the door to record what was going on inside. I could see the video on my phone's screen as it recorded the situation in the room. My wife was with John and Kevin, our neighbors. Both are married with young children. The bed was draped in a huge rubber sheet. I had never seen the rubber sheet before. This was clearly planned. I never realized she had these tastes. I tried being more pushy with her once, and she blocked me from intimacy for nearly a month, stating, "I'm not that kind of girl." I examined if the video I had was sufficient and determined it was. I softly exited the hallway. I went down to the kitchen, got a drink, and contemplated my new situation. I now realized my wife was adulterous. I told no one else but myself that I no longer wanted my wife. I need to establish a plan. I need to give her a lesson. Standing in the kitchen, mulling, I got an idea and told myself aloud, "Yeah, that is exactly what I intend to do." I walked to the refrigerator, took out all but one bottle of wine, and placed it in the kitchen cabinet. I took 2 of her sleeping tablets from her handbag on the kitchen table, ground them up, and placed them in the sole bottle of wine I had left in the fridge. Back inside, I took my laptop and sat at the dining room table. I halted to listen to what was happening upstairs based on the sounds. They were continuing their operations. I went online and removed Diane from my medical will and life insurance. I divided our finances. I downloaded some do-it-yourself divorce forms from my state and started filling them in. Later, I heard the upstairs shower begin. They were in there for more than an hour. Our stairs finish right in front of our front door, which is immediately across from our dining room. When all 3 arrived downstairs, I remarked, "You guys are so caught. I forwarded your video to your wife. Have fun during your divorces." On the stair landing, they all stood motionless in awe. John was the first to recover. He yelled, "What have you done?" John is 2 inches taller than me and weighs 20 pounds, the majority of which is fat. "I ended your marriage, just as you did mine. I am going to hurt you," he yelled before John could muster the confidence to execute on his threat. I rose up and retrieved 2 carving knives that I had hidden under a table napkin. I went forward to within a few feet of the trio, holding a knife in each hand. Staring exclusively at John, I asked, "Do you feel the same way, Kevin?" "No, Guy. I do not want any part of this." "Then leave. There's a door." I pointed at the door with the knife in my left hand, staring just at John. Kevin raced out the door. "There goes your backup, John. Now it is just you and me. I've never liked you, John. I've always known you were a dishonest, backstabbing piece of trash. You never liked me because I know who you really are, John, and you are fuming at me. I am going to take that knife from you and hurt you." I moved closer, pointing a knife at his face. "Go ahead. Make your move. When you try to grab the knife in your face, I'll sink the second 8-inch carving knife right into your big belly. Or perhaps you are too sluggish, and I'll put this one in your left eye first." John looked at me with hatred in his eyes. "Come on, rough dude. I am looking forward to feeling my knife sink into you." I smiled menacingly at him. "Come on, big man. I cannot wait to harm you. I really want to hurt you right now. I'll offer you an incentive. I'm going to speak with your wife after this. She has always liked me more than you, especially now that I realize I have a far better personality to give." I knew he was envious of the warm intimacy my wife and I had, and the personality statement just felt right because it was true. John's face became more crimson. "What is wrong, rough guy? You are constantly telling everyone how tough you are and how you will never back down from a fight. So here's your chance." I rapidly rushed forward, poking the knife at his face. John flinched away. If he hadn't, he'd be without his left eye. John's appearance changed. After nearly losing an eye, John recognized I was being serious. I could tell from the terror in his eyes and the dampness pouring down his legs. Looking at John as he finished embarrassing himself, I knew he would just babble. I spoke in a contemptuous tone. John, you're causing a mess on my floor. Get out of my house. Forget you logically. He yelled and raced out the door. As I watched him race down the street, I yelled something out loud to nobody in particular. Pity. I truly despised John. I truly wanted to see him suffer on the floor. Diane appeared pale and worried. Closing the front door and turning to Diane, I replied brightly, "Come on, dear. Let's chat. Be careful. Tough dudes, don't step in, Ness." I sat back down in my dining room chair and returned the 2 knives to the table napkin. I indicated for Diane to sit across from me, and she dashed to the chair, evidently shaken from what I'd done to John. Diane apologized in a contrite tone. While going over the files in front of me, I replied in my normal voice, "Yes, you are. You are a truly poor excuse for a person." Before Diane could make another dumb excuse, I pushed some papers across the table, where Diane could see them. I filled out these online divorce papers. We will split it 50-50ths, because this is a no-fault state. I will give you the house and keep my 401k. I have already transferred half of my bank and savings accounts onto my own account. I paid down the balances on the credit cards and canceled them. I want you out of my life as quickly as possible, so I'm trying to be fair in order to complete this divorce as quickly as possible. However, there will be no alimony. Despite the fact that she was still shaking, she had lost any contrition. No way. I understand my rights. You make significantly more. I want alimony and a house. Do you want to see the video that your parents, family, and friends will watch? In fact, I believe all future boyfriends you date may receive a copy. So much for you marrying your future rich financial account. I'm not letting you take whatever you want. I'm showing her my phone screen, where I had paused the video of her with the neighbors. That is blackmail. She cried. It's not my fault that John's or Kevin's wives shared the video. I emailed them. They must despise you for separating their families. I pointed to the papers in front of her and said, "Sign them. It's the best deal you'll get. And the longer you wait, the more probable the footage will become public." She read them over and signed where I had indicated. Good. I'll file them today. I'm moving out, so I'll be in and out over the next 3 days. I've already called into work to request the rest of the week off. So, if you don't mind, please leave me alone while I leave here. I won't let you take whatever you desire. I am watching you. Fine. It's your choice. With that, I got up and left the house to file the paperwork at the courthouse. When I returned to the house in a little rental van, Diane was seated on the couch with a glass of wine in hand. She wasn't dressed adequately. "I have my phone capturing video, so you might want to alter your outfit." She grinned at me and made a flirtatious motion. "Do you still love me?" Despite my strong want to respond, I chose not to. I wanted to make a witty remark about her appearance, but the silent treatment was making her upset, so I kept quiet. "You know you will miss me." I stared at her for a time, as if I had smelled something bad. Then, without speaking, I walked up to our bedroom and began packing my clothing. She followed me in and lay down on the bed while I packed. She tried to make excuses and sweet-talked me for approximately 20 minutes. She began flirting, saying, "I miss you. Get back to me." After I failed to respond to her words or even look her in the eyes, when I turned my back to her, she slid off the bed and began rubbing against my back. "Come on, sweetie, I will treat you better." She reached around and attempted to embrace me, but I was absolutely motionless. Fortunately, my wrath and disgust took precedence over all other emotions. She knew I wasn't going to talk, and that her behavior wasn't impacting me. She let go and headed toward the bedroom door. She came to a stop at the door and yelled at me, "Maybe if you were a better husband, I wouldn't need to be with other men." I didn't stop packing or even look at her. Throughout the years we had been together, I had always responded to her advances, despite her inability to elicit verbal or emotional responses from me. This infuriated her. Diane stormed downstairs, cursing at me. "If you had been a better husband, I would not have gone astray. If you had paid more attention to me, we wouldn't be having this issue." Her final rant. She yelled at the foot of the steps. "You will never be able to reconcile with me, unless you apologize for mistreating me so brutally." I thought to myself, what a train wreck. As I placed some of my belongings into the moving van, she sat on the couch in her robe, drinking wine and watching television. She pretended to not notice me. About an hour later, I was lugging a box across the living room. I noticed Diane was sleeping. I entered the kitchen and checked the bottle of wine. It was practically vacant. I moved over to Diane and nudged her. She was sleeping. I shrieked her name into her ear. No response. I grinned and stated it out, feeling good about myself. I love when a plan comes together. I pulled her wedding band off her finger and placed it in my pocket. I switched her phone to airplane mode and stored it in a kitchen drawer. I closed the shades around the house. I covered the interior of the front door, which included glass, with a black blanket that I had purchased previously. I also covered the glass in the garage doors. I also disconnected the front doorbell. I spent the remainder of the evening packing anything I wanted from the house, including her beautiful jewelry and valuable cooking equipment and appliances. I completed these first in case things didn't go as planned. Her sleeping medications last 8 hours for her, and she always feels foggy for an hour after taking them. My wife is quite difficult to wake up, so I crushed another of her sleeping tablets and poured the powder into her open mouth. I then poured some wine in. She coughed slightly but swallowed it. I repeated the procedure every 6 hours. I awoke at 8 a.m. and prepared breakfast for myself. I then walked outdoors to rearrange the backyard. I used a padlock to secure the side gate. I gave Diane another sleeping medication, brought her outdoors, and set her in the lawn chair. I'd stretched a rope between our trees and hung several large beach towels from them. Not that it was likely, but in case the neighbors happened to look, it would appear that we were drying towels near our pool. In truth, it was so the neighbors wouldn't see my unconscious wife sunning beside the pool. Throughout the day, I packed the vehicle, storing belongings in a storage container, and keeping personal items in my extended stay motel room. Every 6 hours, I gave Diane another sleeping pill, about every hour. I also repositioned her chair so that she was not shaded by the hanging towels and was facing the sun. We didn't want an inconsistent tan at lunchtime. Someone started hammering on our front door. I peered out of our front window. It was Kevin and John's wife. I heard them cry, "Come out here, you homewrecker. I am going to hurt you. You cannot hide forever, you nasty person." I had rented a little moving van that would fit in the garage. I watched them try to get through the side fence. Fortunately, they did not climb the gate. The black blanket created the impression that the home and garage were completely dark, since the house appeared abandoned. They both left after around 5 minutes. By the end of the day, Diane was as red as a lobster. After dark, I brought Diane inside and sat her on the couch. I turned on the ceiling fan to help her stay cool. I reset my alarm to wake me every 6 hours so I could keep her unconscious. At 9 a.m. on Friday, I brought Diane back to her lawn chair. Surprisingly, Diane awoke about 1 p.m. due to the pain from the sun. I saw her stagger in through the rear entrance. "Diane, what has happened to you? You're very sunburned. Lay on the couch and drink the water." I placed her down on the couch and offered her some water that I had prepared. The water included a sleeping tablet. After she fell back asleep, I brought her back to her lawn chair. I then returned to the house and emptied 2 bottles of wine before meticulously cleaning out the last bottle of wine and water. Glass. She drank from. After dark, I brought Diane back inside and placed her on the couch. I could feel the heat leaving her body. She was already getting blisters from the sun. There had been 2 clear, lovely, hot, sunny days. I let the sedative wear off. I removed all of the blankets, opened all of the blinds in the home, took the padlock off the side gate, and took the rope and towels out of the backyard. At 8 p.m., I poked Diane's tan stomach. She did not wake up. I tried again an hour later. Diane awoke screaming, "Don't touch me! Diane, I need to take you to the hospital. You dozed asleep in the sun and suffered severe sunburn. Where am I now? I'm hurt." Diane was quite groggy. "Diane, I need to get you to the hospital. You look terrible. Your face is completely bloated." Diane cautiously put on her robe, and I drove her to the hospital. I had to carry her to the car. Her feet were so burnt that she couldn't walk. After admitting her to the hospital emergency room, the doctor came out and asked me some questions. How many hours did she spend in the sun? I do not know. I've recently moved out. Luckily, I had to return home to get some items when I saw her on the couch. I believe she got intoxicated and fell asleep in the sun all day. Do you think she will be okay? Yes, but we won't know the full amount of the harm until we can reduce the swelling. How awful is it? I asked. She has 2nd-degree burns over the entire front of her body. She may potentially have 3rd-degree burns on certain regions. She has sun poisoning, so we're hydrating her to reduce the temperature and swelling. I will keep you informed as additional information becomes available. After the doctor departed, I looked in on Diane. They had burned gauze across the front of her entire body. There was a gauze pad covering her lower body. I had ensured that her legs were always wide and pointed at the sun. A lovely nurse approached me and asked me some questions. "Are you the husband?" "Ex-husband?" I responded. "So, can you give her insurance information?" "Nope. I dropped her from my insurance. I don't think she has any others. You will need to ask her when she awakens." I quickly turned on her and left the hospital. The next day, 2 police officers arrived at our house as I was packing. One officer asked questions while the other inspected our basement and backyard. He spent the majority of his time gazing around the kitchen and laundry area. Can we ask you some questions concerning your wife's sunburn that landed her in the hospital? Do you mean my soon-to-be ex-wife, Diane? We are divorcing. I see. Could you please tell me when you last saw your wife? Not sunburned. It would be Thursday. I stopped by a couple of times to retrieve my belongings. She sat on the couch. Could you tell whether she had tanned on Thursday? Yes. She had a lovely crimson hue all over her body. I responded. What time was it? Approximately 8 p.m. How did you determine the extent of her tan? She was undressed. I caught her on Wednesday being unfaithful to my two neighbors, and she was attempting to persuade me not to divorce her. I responded. I see. When was your most recent encounter with her? I saw her Friday morning when I stopped by to grab some of my belongings. Was she tanning, then? Yes. When she noticed me in the house, she came inside. She was nude, inebriated, and feeling sorry for herself. She tried again to persuade me and became angry when I refused. I collected my belongings and left. When I left, she was back outside resting in the sun. She carried a bottle of wine with her. Does your wife generally drink a lot? She normally takes a few glasses of wine while lying out in the sun. When I found her on Friday night, there were 3 empty bottles on the counter. She rarely consumes 3 bottles unless she is sunbathing with her pals, although she does drink more when she is upset. And she was clearly depressed, knowing that I would not stay married to someone who was unfaithful. Can you tell us who she usually sunbathes with? I can tell you the names of her 2 best buddies. She tans with them, but they now despise her. I responded. Why is that? These 2 dudes. I told you I discovered her being unfaithful too. These were their husbands. I see. Your wife claims you drugged and abandoned her in the sun. She accuses me of being an idiot. I constantly advised her not to drink after she took those ridiculous sleeping pills. So, your wife takes sleeping pills? Yes. Her doctor gave her a prescription. She treats them like sweets when she wants to sleep, is depressed, or experiencing pain. Honestly, she enjoys taking them and drinking. They raise her higher than a kite. I see. Okay. Thank you for speaking with us. As they turned, I gave them my best bewildered look. I thought it was a great touch, and I was really wondering what they were thinking. Honesty is always the best policy when dealing with the police. As soon as the cops left, I exchanged my modest moving vehicle for a larger one. I needed space for furnishings and large garage stuff. On Monday, I listed the house for sale, knowing that I would need the money shortly. 2 days later, Diane called. Honey, could you just bring me some clothes? Nope. Not going to happen. Why don't you have John or Kevin run your errands for you? Honey, I need your assistance. Could you just forgive me a little? I've already given you a little help. I had to carry your miserable self to the car and take you to the hospital. Do not call me ever again. So I hung up. By the time Diane was released from the hospital, I had removed everything from the house, save her oldest clothing, makeup, our bed, and the rubber sheet. I discovered the rubber sheet wrapped in a huge Ziploc plastic bag at the bottom of the laundry basket. I did not leave any sheets, blankets, or pillows on the bed, only the rubber sheet. She had not had a chance to clean the rubber sheet. I'm sure the room was rather aromatic. By the time she arrived home, especially considering I switched off the house's central air before leaving, nice and toasty for my sunburnt wife's return, I kept everything I needed in a rental storage unit. Anything I didn't want or Diane would want from the divorce, I either resold it or threw it away. I destroyed the entire wedding album, removed all digital copies, and torched her wedding garment. We both hired lawyers, and I only corresponded via them. Diane sent me hundreds of text messages and emails. Mostly apologies, but also a few threats. Especially when she returned home from the hospital and discovered I had cleared out the place. Diane attempted to challenge the divorce papers she had signed. She needed money. She became a vampire and avoided the sun at all costs. The heat of the sun on her garments caused her agony. Of course, she had to abandon her profession as a real estate agent who wanted to be shown a house by a sweltering person who must avoid the heat. She said she signed the divorce papers under pressure, and I took everything from the house. She also sought alimony. Fortunately, the house sold before we got separated. When I threatened to postpone the house sale and refused to turn over the money to her, she decided to drop the divorce case. I knew she was desperate for money. A month after the divorce, after dark, there was a hammering on my apartment door, and I looked through the eye-hole. I realized it was my ex-wife. I hadn't spoken with her since I dropped her off at the hospital. She appeared to have been drinking. I knew this day was coming. I opened the door, and she forced herself inside the apartment. What do you want, Diane? I'd like a drink. There is a bottle of wine in the refrigerator. She unlocked the refrigerator door, grabbed the open bottle of wine, and took a long sip. She then grabbed a glass and filled it with wine, emptying the bottle while holding her full glass. Diane sat down on my couch in my most sarcastic voice. I asked, "Why don't you make yourself at home?" "I will," Diane responded cynically. She removed her thin jacket and resumed her seat on my couch. She was wearing a little crop top that resembled a bikini. She had a haughty, entitled, arrogant expression on her face that I'd seen too many times. I sat across from her. I gave her a hard look. She had several wrinkles and black moles on her face. Her skin had severely peeled and was exceedingly uneven, with white, red, and gray spots. She was wearing no makeup, therefore, I'm guessing her physicians advised her that makeup could cause infection. The most noticeable alteration was her nose. Her nose had grown substantially bigger. She didn't have a lovely tiny nose, but rather a rough, scarred mess. She should also have left her jacket on. Her torso had more dark moles than her face, and the skin appeared considerably worse. Diane had always taken an interest in her appearance, and dressed in cute clothes to attract men's notice, and have her way with me. I knew Diane would be self-conscious about her appearance. I think part of the motivation for this visit was to improve her self-esteem by receiving some of my tried and true admiration. I made no attempt to conceal my disinterest in her current appearance. Diane visibly crumpled under my stare, and her cockiness vanished. What was she expecting? She is a narcissist who is accustomed to receiving anything she wants from guys, with a pretty grin and a shake of her body. Instead of gradually losing men's attention over a 25-year period, the sunburn had made her invisible to them suddenly. Especially me. "What do you want, Diane?" With a nice smile. "I want you to give me another chance. Love is based on trust. I do not trust you. Instead of enhancing our relationship, you selfishly kept the fascinating side of yourself from me and gave it to others. Regardless of your justifications or what you claim today, your actions indicate that I was not worth the effort. It had no negative impact on our relationship. I was still the same housewife. I always was. You should have used that energy to bring our relationship to life rather than poison it. I knew Diane well enough to realize she had come prepared with a well-rehearsed script, based on the astonished expression on her face. I had just disrupted her introductory dialogue. "What do you actually desire, Diane?" Her smile vanished. "I want you to pay my medical bills. You should not have removed me from your healthcare plan. We weren't legally divorced yet. Actually, this is how a divorce is meant to work. We split our finances, and we no longer live together. This is how it is done." Looking at me from beneath her new drooping eyelids. "You did this to me. You owe me. If you don't help me, I'll contact the cops." "Well, that will not work. The police stopped by months ago and questioned me. Nothing has transpired since then, or during our divorce proceedings. Nobody believes your insane narrative. I know what you've done to me. What allowed you to lie out in the sun, getting drunk and falling asleep? I didn't realize there was a law against that. How could you? You love me." "Wrong. I loved you." Past tense. We sat in silence for a few moments before she spoke in her saddest tone. "I need your help. I have a lot of medical bills. I'm out of money, and I need more skin treatment, perhaps even skin transplants to correct some issues." Looking at me with really sad eyes. "I still love you. I know you loved me. We might still love one another." I believe the sunburn had damaged her tear ducts. I could tell she was attempting to cry for compassion. "Why don't you ask Kevin or John for assistance? They must have been close to you as well." Looking at me with a strange, guilty, furious, regretful expression. "They're both divorced, broke, and have no desire to interact with me." A few weeks after our breakup, John came over to my hotel room and asked to spend time with me. I guess he thought he could reclaim his manhood. He could not. I could tell in his eyes that I reminded him of the day he embarrassed himself in fear of you. He rushed out of my apartment, calling me a dry, old mess. He never liked you. And it was eating him up that he gave you such a stunning backdown. What's worse, his wife had watched the video. You dispatched and waited for him at home. She witnessed John degrade himself and knew it was your fault. She even took photographs. I had seen John's wife several times since that day. She asked me why John had disgraced himself, and I answered her later. She always mentioned my name when she talked to John with her permission. I sent John a picture every week. No one could tell it was her and me, but enough that John could tell. We stopped seeing each other a few weeks ago, but I had plenty of photos. I didn't strive as much with Kevin. He had nothing left to destroy after losing his family. In other words, Diane revealed during some of her remorseful drunk messages that John had pursued her. But she had seduced Kevin. Diane wanted to be with both men, and felt Kevin was attractive and youthful, during one of John's barbecues. I'd seen Kevin's excitement when Diane responded to his harmless flirtation. Following their first meeting, they spent time together. Kevin wanted to call it off, claiming it was a mistake. However, John and Diane pressed Kevin to proceed with the photos John had covertly taken. Kevin realized the hard way how susceptible unfaithful people are. "You truly scared John." Diane's eyes shone with delight. She was remembering the exhilaration of the moment. It excited her. Her eyes told me she hoped I had made an attempt to win her back. I stared at her with a dead expression till the hope in her eyes vanished. Kevin's wife insults him in front of everyone, even their children. She will never let Kevin or anybody else forget. She shared your video with everyone he knows, including his family and mine. I met Kevin in the grocery store and asked if we could meet. He burst into tears and slumped on the floor. I left when the cops arrived. He is more broken than John. I could see the frightened expression in her eyes, as she remembered how Kevin and John had looked at her, and what she had done to ruin their marriages. Diane took a huge drink of wine from her glass, hoping to relieve the agony. "Why don't you continue to provide them the same things you did before? That worked earlier. I can't be intimate anymore. Why not contract an illness?" "No. A sunburn. Ouch. Sensitive parts are quite painful. You have no idea. My sensitive parts are really uncomfortable. I have to continually place gauze pads over certain regions of my body, since simply a breeze across them causes pain. Based on what I saw, you enjoy that type of thing. But I don't think they are the areas that John and Kevin are most interested in." Her tears started streaming. Diane sobbed and half shouted, "The sunburn caused irreversible damage to me." "What?" I asked through her tears. She claimed my sensitive areas were sunburned exactly like the rest of my body. After the skin peeled off, I lost feeling in certain spots. The physician stated the feeling might return, but I don't feel anything anymore. I can't enjoy intimacy anymore. Diane cried deeper into her hands. I allowed her to cry for a few minutes. I could see she was praying my heart would break, so I could take her into my arms instead. I took up her glass of wine and handed it to her. She took a few big gulps, sniffled, and offered me a little smile. Unbelievable. She believed she could win me back with a few tears, provocative clothing, and a smile. Even after she tore my heart out and treated me like garbage. She expected me to be there for her, financially and emotionally. I smiled to myself. I had utterly upended her carefree existence in order to demolish any residual hope and entirely remove her from my life. When Diane noticed my tiny smile, she stopped crying and gave me her warmest smile. I approached her, gently pulled her arm, and led her to the front door, which was open. She turned, pressing her body into mine. She looked tenderly up into my eyes, asking, "Do you still love me?" I looked intently into her eyes. I slowly shut the door and asked, "Why? Everything I liked about you is gone." Standing defeated on my porch, I carefully shut the door in her face. This concludes story. Here's the next story. Jane and I, Greg, married less than 4 years ago. I thought everything was wonderful. We had completed our 4-year degrees, worked in our chosen fields, and were saving for a house. We wanted a house to start a family. Jane worked the same as I did when she got home early. When I arrived home early, she had prepared our dinner. I made our dinner. Jane chose what we would eat. She made a list of things to buy. Either she or I would go to the supermarket and buy the goods on her list. It all depended on who arrived home first. Whoever got home later kissed their spouse's cheek. Already at home. I believed we had an equitable marriage. We had a few arguments, but nothing major. At the conclusion of each debate, we made love. Our love sessions were passionate. She would occasionally request that we stop. Other times I did. We both slept in the incorrect place. There was nothing like looking at my wife's body. I didn't care how weary I was looking at her sleeping figure. The last one up in the morning signaled a wonderful morning. The last to go to bed at night. Prompter. We had a fantastic night before we fell asleep. Jane eventually stopped speaking to me. She went on with her normal routine. Our lives together remained the same as before. She stopped conversing with me. It did not make sense. I asked her repeatedly what the problem was. She smiled every time but said nothing. There was no suggestion as to why she stopped speaking with me. Jane continued to converse with others. She spoke with her parents over the phone. She spoke with her buddies on the phone, but refused to speak with me. We continued to do everything we did before she stopped speaking to me. Jane connected with me through handwritten letters or text messages on our phones. When it was more convenient, she utilized hand gestures to show me what she wanted. She used hand signals to indicate whether she wanted me to sit at the table or on the couch. If she wanted to know what I wanted when she went shopping. She gave me a partial list with some items already on it. When things were really confusing, she wrote a message on paper or texted me. I have no idea why the change occurred. At first, I assumed it was some type of game. It lasted too long. When she stopped using our morning and nightly greetings, I knew something was awry. When Mom seized the TV remote from me, rather than asking me to change channels, I realized something was wrong. Some things altered after she stopped speaking to me, while others remained constant. Aside from not speaking, there were other differences. She stopped initiating love. She never rejected it when I initiated it, but it was like being in love with the dead. I gave up after a few failed attempts at love with the dead. I asked her again what was wrong. She smiled but said nothing. We had been sharing the same bedroom and sleeping on the same mattress. We slept without touching. In frustration, I left the main bedroom. She never mentioned or conveyed anything about it. My life has become increasingly complicated since she ceased communicating with me. I suppose she was trying to tell me something, but I wasn't sure what. I asked her again what was wrong. All she did was smile. Then she resumed her business. Text messaging and paper notes became our primary modes of communication. Regardless of how many times I asked her what was wrong, she never informed me. Jane spoke with people in person or over the phone. She spoke to people in front of me, but not to me. She never responded when I asked her a question. When I spoke to her in front of others, she smiled and continued the conversation with them. We continued to socialize with pals in front of them. She would talk to others but not me. It was embarrassing and insulting. No one in our social group shared any information about what prompted my wife to quit speaking to me. I asked but received no response. I told everyone that I didn't know what made her quit speaking to me. Nobody helped me understand what was going on. Many of the people with whom we interacted were aware of my wife's rationale for ceasing to communicate with me. Nobody ever said or indicated anything to me. It was so awful that when we caught up with others, we drove separately. We arrived and left at different times. I'm not sure how she communicated this to everyone. Nobody ever asked me to explain it. When we went to supper with her parents, no one questioned our lack of communication. Nobody questioned why we came and left in separate cars at different times. Everyone was simultaneously kind and unfriendly. At times, I suspected she was having an affair. Not speaking to me was the precursor to separation and eventual divorce. I stated this to her several times throughout dinner. She answered by tossing her head from side to side, grinned, and resumed her previous activities. I wasn't getting anywhere and didn't know where to go. 4 months after Jane ceased communicating with me, I had had enough. I told her over dinner that I would not put up with her, and that she would not be speaking to me for much longer. I still didn't get why she was doing this. She smiled. Whatever her reasoning. When your spouse stops communicating with you, there is no home life. Your marriage is hanging on by a thread, and you have no idea why. This impacted my work. I asked a few of my coworkers what they thought of my position. Nobody had any idea. Nobody had heard of a situation like mine. If someone did something incorrectly, there would be a lot of yelling and screaming. The wronged individual would explain how they were wronged. Because I was the only one speaking. I paused. We were not chatting. My wife would never know how much this was harming my career because I stopped discussing it as well. I was returning home after a hard day at work to a silent, dreary evening or weekend at home. I looked for reasons to postpone returning home. The pub was a getaway. I began arriving home later and later. At first, I called home to say I'd be late. She was on the line but did not answer. After a while, I stopped calling home to say I was going to be late. Regardless of how late I arrived home, she would look at me and say nothing. I noticed a tear run down her cheek. Even then, she would not say anything. About 5 months after she stopped speaking to me, I made the decision to change my life. I considered divorce, but it was a long and expensive process. I was at risk of losing my job because I was sad and unproductive. It was only a matter of time before I became unemployed. The handwriting was on the wall. I couldn't improve my performance at work. If I didn't address my home life, my wife would keep working. She would go in the morning, without saying anything. She returned in the evening, but said nothing. The sound of the doors closing alerted me to her arrival or departure. My wife was not speaking to me, so I had no idea how she was doing at work. Was she as unhappy as I was? I felt confined. My wife was no longer my wife. It influenced everything I believed I felt or did. The only way to get out of this box was to leave everything behind and start again. I had several ties to Jane. We relied on each other's wages to support our existing lifestyle. Losing my employment would have a significant financial impact on us. We shared friends in a social circle, which I am currently considering for a fresh start. I needed a new job, ideally far away. I started answering job searches I contacted companies that could benefit from my skills. I looked at employment boards and special interest forms. Within a month, I had 3 responses. I took some time off and met with 2 of them. Each time, it forced me to take a day off from work. Both potential employment offers were 4 to 6 hours away from where I was. The offer I received and accepted required a 6-hour travel from my current location. My new employer agreed to a 3-week start date. They would provide for short-term accommodations until I found something permanent. I started dividing our finances. We had only one shared credit card. Otherwise, we all had our own and were accountable for them. This was likewise true for our autos. We shared a common insurance carrier. I offered the insurance company a canceled date for my automobile in my name, and we decided on a start date for me and my car alone. We had separate health insurance plans through our various companies. We all paid our own cell phone bills. We did not have a shared landline phone. I stopped depositing money into the joint account. We used to pay our rent and grocery costs. By the end of the first week, we had become financially separated. Jane was unaware of our lack of communication. I altered my post office address to a tavern, approximately an hour from our house. Monday morning, I met with my direct supervisor. I described my home circumstances. That explains why I went from being a reliable and effective team member to one who will be missed. When I departed, he expressed his sympathy and asked if he could help. I requested a letter of recommendation and offered him 2 weeks' notice. He inquired where I was heading. I did not give him that information because I did not want him to share it with my soon-to-be ex-wife. He accepted my reasoning. We hosted a little party at work for everyone I knew from my time there. Then I went home and started preparing myself for the adjustments I planned to make over the weekend. Jane entered the house around the time she usually did. We gazed at one another. She said nothing. I said hello. Then I resumed writing my plans in my workbook. I believe she looked sad, but who knows? I did not look up to observe her reaction to my hi. She entered the house, changed her clothes, and then came downstairs to begin making dinner. Do not make anything for me. I will be eating out, I said. She gave me a quizzical glance but said nothing. I finished what I was doing and walked upstairs to my bedroom. I organized everything I cared about and intended to take with me so that I could quickly pack and get it to the car. Coming back down, I glanced at Jane and said, I'm going out. I am not sure when I will get back. Then I went out the door. I returned home after dining at a nearby bar and drank something to get me buzzed. It was late, and Jane was still watching television. She said nothing as I glanced at her and then went to my bedroom. I awoke early Saturday morning and made a light breakfast and coffee for myself. Jane walked downstairs and glanced at me as she ate and drank coffee. She said nothing when she first stopped talking to me. We'd still eat and drink coffee together. I would make something for her, or she would make something for me. Although she never talked. Now we didn't bother with each other. We shared the house, but I couldn't tell you anything else. Perhaps it was my imagination that she was depressed. She was responsible for our current position. She was stubborn. She began and was continuing it. I thought, and was accurate, that she had something to do outside the house while she was out. I packed everything that was important to me in my car. When my wife returned home that evening, she either ignored or didn't care that I had removed so many items. On Sunday morning, while Mom was in church, I finished packing and departed. I didn't leave her a message or any other indication that I was not returning. We hadn't spoken in so long that I didn't feel the need to tell her what I was up to. I began my drive, unsure whether my wife would notice or care that I was not home. When she returned from church, my new site was a 6-hour journey away. I didn't hear from Jane until about 6 p.m. Sunday evening, she texted me, asking when I'd be home. I did not respond. Approximately 10 p.m. that evening, I received another text asking when I'd be home. I did not respond between 2 and Monday morning. I received another text wondering if anything was wrong. I waited till 6 in the morning to respond. I've begun another life. What does this mean? She messaged again. You've started something fresh. Now I've started something fresh. The remainder of my life. I replied. I do not comprehend. She texted. You do not comprehend. I've never understood. You stopped speaking with me. You've never explained why. It's extremely intriguing that you humiliated and insulted me in front of everyone for reasons you don't comprehend. You made my home life horrible. That influenced my work. I was going to lose my job as a result of this. I became proactive. I started my new work today. This is the most we've communicated in the past 5 months. I believe we've said everything we could possibly say to each other. I sent a text. What exactly are you talking about? She texted. There is nothing left to say between us. You've said it all throughout our last 5 months together. Now I agree with you. There's nothing between us. This is not a marriage. Have a good life. I texted her. What exactly are you talking about? Are you leaving me? She texted. I have left. Since you have nothing to talk about with me, there is nothing to say to each other. I'm still not sure why you stopped communicating with me. I'm not sure why you stopped caring about me or us. We've grown distant, very far apart, and it hasn't disturbed you enough to talk to me. This telephone number will be deactivated within 3 days. I'm only going to stay working till I can set up my new life. I texted back. My phone began ringing. I let it go to voicemail. Please. We should talk. I was on voicemail. I texted back. Yeah, we should have chatted over the last 5 months. The time for chatting has passed. I told you I wouldn't take your silence for much longer. Even when we were socializing, you just smiled and remained quiet. I suppose they understood why you were silent with me. But I did not. Now it doesn't matter. I received another voicemail. Please let me clarify. I did not respond. Over the next 3 days, I received numerous SMS and phone calls. I've never heard or read any of them. On day 4, the phone number was terminated. If she called or texted, she would receive a message stating that the service had been discontinued. My new life was not what I expected. I met and collaborated with new people. They knew nothing about me except what I had told them. There was no cloud of something. They knew I didn't. Perhaps that was what motivated me to leave my previous life behind. Too many people knew why my wife didn't speak to me and kept it hidden from me. After 2 months in my new place, I didn't miss much of my former life. I'd been on a couple of dates and had intimate encounters with 2 women. I was never the type of person to duck and run. I relished the warmth and liked the company. I valued partnerships that involved more than just affection. Do not misunderstand. Love is an essential component of a committed relationship. It hasn't been there in the last 5 months with my wife. To build meaningful relationships, you must be open. I shared my woes with the 2 women I was seeing. They persuaded me that I needed closure because I was still technically married. After agreeing with their arguments, I had to stop my relationship with my soon-to-be ex-wife. I located a divorce attorney in my previous town, who agreed to represent me. I informed him that I did not want to file for divorce, but that I would meet with him once I was convinced that my wife would file. I paid him a retainer and told him I didn't want direct contact from my wife, using an old email address I had. I emailed my wife the contact information for the lawyer I hired. I was instantly flooded with emails from her indicating that we needed to talk. I answered by stating that I was not reading her texts. We had time to talk before I departed. We now had nothing to talk about but the divorce. Our only option for ending our relationship was to get divorced. The emails kept arriving until I blocked them. 3 months later, my attorney contacted me. He informed me that my wife requested that I speak with her parents before she took any action. I told him I'd do it if she wasn't there. When I spoke to them, Jane and her parents agreed. I called her parents. They put me on speakerphone so that both of them could engage in the chat simultaneously. I reiterated that if she was present, I would immediately disconnect. They agreed that she was not present. So, what would you like to chat about? I asked. Her mother stated, "We discovered that there was serious trouble between the 2 of you. 10 days following your departure." Really? The first stated that everyone realized there was an issue, especially after she stopped talking to me in front of them. If you recall, she did not talk to me. Even in your residence. Didn't you ask her why we assumed you were having a usual argument? Typically, one side will stop speaking to the other for a while. Well, now you know better. It was more than that. What would you like to chat about? Did you ever cheat on her? What? I asked. Did you ever cheat on her? They repeated. Nope, never. Why are you asking? Has anyone mentioned anything? Your Jane believes you cheated on her. She never mentioned anything about it. Is this why she stopped speaking with me? We believe she was waiting for you to admit or say something about it. Well, I never cheated on her and never assumed she thought I did. There was nothing to admit or explain. Does she still believe I cheated on her? She is unsure. She hasn't said anything to me in all this time. She never asked or hinted that she believed I had done anything wrong. Now she believes I cheated on her. What a waste. I wonder where she gets her information. So, where does this leave us? She wants to talk with you about it. If you can convince her that you did not cheat, she will forgive you. What? Make anyone believe that I want her to take me back? I had been in a loveless marriage for over 5 months. If anyone should have questions, it should be me. If she was willing to go 5 months without love, did she find it somewhere else? We sort of posed the same thing. She categorically denied this. Can I believe it? I'm not sure where she got the impression that I cheated on her in the first place. There's no way I can defend myself. Besides, I know she doesn't have proof because I never cheated. Perhaps she or someone else noticed me in the company of another woman. There is nothing wrong with that. In a typical work atmosphere, men and women collaborate. At this stage in our relationship, I believe she should understand that we will not be together. I don't care if she believes I cheated on her. I don't care if it was the reason she stopped speaking to me now. I am content living without her. She made the last 5 months of our relationship pretty bad. I doubt she wasn't having love with someone because she wasn't with me. We had the same thoughts and asked her about it. She has assured us that she did not cheat. Well, perhaps not physically. But what about emotions? She never told me explicitly, but I have heard from others that she spends a lot of time talking to Harry. All I know about him is that he's a coworker. Perhaps he is the individual who led her to believe I was cheating. If so, he'll be in her bed before the ink dries. About our divorce. She does not desire a divorce. She did not want to speak to me. Now she does not want a divorce. Nonetheless, she suspects I cheated on her. That is not the type of woman I want to marry. I need a woman who trusts me. And if something dubious arises, please contact me. That's not your daughter. You'll know for certain if Harry is the one who raised all of her doubts. He'll be the first to sleep in her bed after the divorce is official. Some people profit from causing marriages to fail. Is there nothing we can say to change your mind? I do not think so. Over the last few months, I've made new friends, some of whom are female. 2 of those female friends instilled in me the significance of closure. That is why I instructed my lawyer to call her. You've been wonderful in laws. If you had known earlier, perhaps you could have persuaded her to speak with me before I went. Anyway, best wishes for her future. I will always adore her, but not enough. And not the type that makes me want to live with her. We are deeply sorry that it has come to this. We'll give her your message. Take care. Send us a letter from time to time. Let us know how you're doing. Another 2 months have passed. When my attorney contacted me, my wife accepted to divorce on the condition that we meet face to face. I did not want to sit in the same room with her. I didn't hate her, or even dislike her. It was that, even if I still had affections for her, she was not the person I had married. I did not want to have a connection with her. I agreed to meet face to finalize the divorce. My only condition was that I would be using Skype, Zoom, or another video platform. I didn't want to spend the time, energy, and money driving back to where we had planned to construct a home for both of us. After a series of back and forth messages, she ultimately consented. I took Wednesday off from work to prepare my home computer for the meeting with my wife and the lawyers. It took numerous tries to get the communications to operate as I wanted. I could see both the lawyers and my wife. My wife looked really good. It was a shame that she couldn't tell me what was bothering her or why. Then, okay. You look stunning, as always. I told Jane you wanted this face-to-face meeting, so I think you should start. First and foremost, I apologize that we have reached this stage. I only stopped speaking with you so that your guilt would force you to admit that you had cheated on me. I figured that if I didn't say anything, you'd ultimately realize that I knew what you'd done. You informed my parents that you had never cheated. But I heard from a credible source that you did. I know I said you didn't have any concrete evidence, because I didn't do anything. Everything you think you know is based on word of mouth. If you have any images, contact the lawyers in your area. If the photographs demonstrate any form of cheating, I believe you accepted someone's word once he or she earned your trust. I also believe that once our divorce is final, he or she will take advantage of you. I am not sure who or how, but he or she will pressure you into doing things you will later regret. Is it possible for us to get together if I accept that you are telling me the truth? Jane asked. Our connection, or lack thereof, has gone too far. We cannot return to our previous situation. Before you start talking to me, or believe what someone else says about me, I've met several other ladies who I find more interesting than you. Do you see them? It really isn't your business at this point. But, yeah, they ask me about everything, even if I was still seeing or desired. You. They trust me when I say no. So there's no hope. She asked, tears streaming down her face. No. Is there anything else we should do before letting the lawyers handle it? I want you to know that. I never stopped loving you. I cry every night when I come into bed and see which side you slept on. Whatever you do, wherever you are, remember, I'll always love you. And for love, I asked. I just have you to compare. I suppose I'll find out in the future. Do you remember what I said? Whoever implanted those thoughts in your head has an ulterior goal. Be careful. They've already forced you to do things you would never have thought of. They may have you doing things you never dreamed about. I love you. Take care. We issued final instructions to our lawyers. Then I signed off, because I refused to return to the city Jane resided in. The divorce took 6 months to be finalized. After it was settled, I assumed I had a clean slate, but that was not the case. I got divorced more than a year after Jane stopped speaking to me. That is when I began receiving phone calls with no one on the other end. Hello? 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 Is anybody there? No response. When it started happening on a regular basis, I was concerned.